I used to work the night shift at a small local radio station in Ohio. It wasn't glamorous, mostly pre-recorded shows, reading weather reports, and monitoring equipment. Quiet. Empty. The kind of place where the silence stretches longer than it should. It was a Thursday night, close to 2:30 a.m. I was alone, as usual. My co-host had left around midnight, and the cleaning crew never showed up on Thursdays. Just me, static, and the low hum of machines. The building itself was old, originally a morgue in the 1920s, oddly enough. There were still heavy steel doors in the basement and the remnants of what looked like embalming rooms. Management had walled most of that off, but I always hated going down there when the breaker tripped. That night, it was bitter cold, even inside. I kept adjusting the thermostat, but it stayed at 60. Then came the buzzing. Not like the normal electric hum, but like a fly trapped in the vents, or maybe a swarm. It started in the corner of the studio and moved toward the ceiling. I turned down the gain on my mic, thinking maybe it was feedback, but it persisted louder in my headphones. I took them off, but I could still hear it. Suddenly, all the lights flickered. And then, dead silence. No basing. No static. No. The entire station went black, except for the on-air sign. It stayed glowing red. I grabbed my flashlight and left the booth. My plan was to check the breaker downstairs, though every cell in my body screamed not to. The moment I opened the stairwell door, the buzzing returned, louder now, almost angry. My light flickered. I paused. Then I saw them. Vet footprints. Bara. Human. Leading up the stairs from the basement. They were fresh, still glistening under my flashlight. I backed away and tried to shut the door, but something held it open. Something cold. It wasn't a hand. It felt like a draft or breath. Suddenly, the station's emergency backup lights blinked on, casting everything in red. I turned to run back into the studio, but the on-air room was no longer empty. Someone was sitting at the desk, wearing my headphones, facing the mic, and breathing heavily. I froze, and for a split second, I thought maybe my co-host came back. But this thing, whoever it was, wasn't typing or moving, just sitting, breathing. Then, the chair turned slowly toward me. But the face, there wasn't one. Just dark skin, stretched too tight, mouth wide open. No eyes, just sockets. Black, endless. I ran. I didn't even take my bag. When I got outside, I realized I'd left my keys inside. I drove home in a panic, barefoot, in the freezing cold. The next day, I called in sick. When I returned on Monday, nothing was out of place, except my headphones. They were sitting exactly where I'd seen them, still warm. And the on-air mic? It had a recorded file saved under a timestamp that matched when I left. Just 7 seconds of breathing. Then a whisper. Don't leave me alone again. I quit the next day. And the scariest part? That station doesn't have recording enabled during that time slot. I never believed in ghosts. I worked the night shift as a security guard for over 7 years. Different buildings, different cities. Strange noises, flickering lights, shadows moving across walls. I've seen it all. But there was always a logical explanation. Until I took a job at Riverside Corporate Tower in downtown Chicago. It was a sleek, glass-paneled 12-story building. Nothing about it seemed creepy. But it had a strange rule. No one was allowed on the 7th floor after midnight. Not even cleaning staff. When I asked my supervisor why, he just shrugged and said, "Company policy. Don't question it. Just monitor the feed." I thought it was stupid. Superstitious nonsense. My job was to sit in the basement control room, watch the cameras, and do 2 full rounds, one at 1 a.m., one at 4. Everything was quiet my first few nights. Then came Thursday. At 2:45 a.m., camera 9, covering the 7th floor, glitched. A quick flicker of black, then static. I leaned forward. That camera had always been clean. I tapped the monitor, and the feed cleared. And there she was, a woman, pale, barefoot, in a torn hospital gown. Her hair was jet black, hanging in front of her face. She stood right in the middle of the hallway, staring directly into the camera. Not moving, just staring. At first, I thought someone broke in. I grabbed my flashlight and radioed the front desk guard. He was outside on a smoke break, said no one had entered the building in over an hour. I switched to camera 10, also on the 7th floor, different angle. Nothing. Empty hallway. Back to camera 9. She was closer, still facing the camera. No movement, just closer, as if the static wasn't a glitch, but a jump cut. My heart started racing. I checked camera 8, stairs leading to the 7th floor. Still nothing. While I looked back at camera 9, she was right in front of the lens. Eyes wide, bloodshot, lips twisted in a crooked smile. Then static. The screen went black. I froze. I wanted to believe it was a loop, a hack, some kind of prank. But then I heard footsteps, not above me, not in the hallway, behind me, in the control room. I turned around. No one. I was alone, or so I thought. The monitors flickered. Every feed turned to static. And for a brief second, I saw her again. Not on the 7th floor, not on the cameras, on the reflection of the monitor glass, standing right behind me. I spun around again, nothing. But the room was ice cold. I could see my breath. The power surge then came back. All the camera feeds were normal again. Except one. Camera 7. The basement hallway, just outside the control room. And there she was, facing the door, head tilted, like she was waiting. I grabbed my keys, ran to the emergency exit, and never looked back. The next morning, I told my supervisor everything. He didn't react the way I expected. He just sighed and said, "She's not supposed to leave the 7th floor." I quit that day. But 3 months later, I got a call from a friend who works overnight security in another building, 30 miles away. He told me a woman showed up on their hallway camera, barefoot, pale, wearing a hospital gown. I asked him what time. He said, 2:45 a.m. They say some spirits are bound to a place. But what if she's not bound to the building? What if she's bound to the camera? I work as an overnight IT technician for a large insurance company. The building is massive, 12 floors, completely empty after 9 p.m. It's just me and a couple of night janitors who mostly keep to themselves. I like the quiet at first. No basis, no distractions. Just me and the hum of servers. But I'll never forget what happened on March 4th, 2023. That was the night I saw him. It was 2 a.m. I had just finished patching a software issue on the 10th floor. Tired, I decided to take a break on the 5th floor lounge. It had a vending machine and a couch. Quiet spot. Cozy. When I stepped out of the elevator, something immediately fell off. The floor was too quiet. Now, I know that sounds strange. It's always quiet. But this felt like the air itself had been sucked out of the building. No bus. Just a dead silence that pressed on my ears. As I approached the break room, I noticed the door was already open. Inside, the vending machine light was flickering. But that's not what caught my attention. There was a man sitting at the table. Alone, in the dark, wearing a black suit, thin frame, pale hands, no ID badge. I froze in the hallway. He didn't move, didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead. His face was in shadow. I cleared my throat and said, hello? You work here?" No response. He just slowly turned his head toward me. I couldn't see his eyes, just darkness where his face should have been, almost like a void. I took a step back. Then he smiled, not a normal smile. His mouth stretched too wide, reaching unnaturally toward his ears. It felt wrong, like my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. I turned and bolted back to the elevator. When the doors finally opened, I slammed the button for the lobby. As I descended, I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was a hallucination, lack of sleep. But when the elevator reached the lobby and the doors opened, he was standing there, waiting. Same suit, same stretched smile. But this time, he had no face at all. Just smooth, blank skin, like wax. I hit the close door button and pressed every floor above me in panic. The doors finally shut. When I reached the 9th floor, I ran out, bolted into the stairwell, and stayed there for almost 30 minutes, clutching the railing, trying to make sense of it. Eventually, I crept down to the lobby. He was gone. The cameras? Didn't show anyone but me, alone, talking to air, running from nothing. I never went back to that building after that night. But here's the part that really messes me up. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a coworker. One of the night janitors had gone missing. The last place he was seen? The fifth floor break room. At 2 a.m., when they checked the security footage, there was one frame, just a blur of black, and a smile. They say office buildings never sleep, but maybe something else stays awake at night. Watching, waiting, and when you're alone at 2 a.m., you're not really alone.